Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for being here for my presentation. I'm doing a community needs assessment for Fallbrook, and when I started looking at the needs around town, I noticed that there was kind of a mass hysteria that had started in our small town over robberies and crime. We have a local Facebook page called Friends of Fallbrook, and many people are nervous and scared and saying, what's happened to Fallbrook? Where are all these burglaries coming from, and why aren't the sheriffs doing their job? So, my purpose for this needs assessment is to explore an issue in the town of Fallbrook, California. This issue is the increase of burglaries the community has been experiencing. The hope is to find an intervention that the town can use in order to create a safer Fallbrook for everyone. Data collecting. I combed through social media to start this. I read newspaper articles and began to get an idea of what kind of burglaries were occurring in Fallbrook and which sheriffs were responding to them. I looked at social media and I actually did a survey for the people of Fallbrook. I wanted to know if they were aware of what resources they had in the town. I also used a website called sandag.org to obtain statistical information that was recommended to me by the sheriff's office. I interviewed Tracy Lubin, who I believe to be a local community organizer. She's actually the founder of the Facebook page Friends of Fallbrook, which has 16,923 members. I believe that most of these members are from the community. There's no way to know for sure. That is over a quarter of the population of the community. So we get a really good idea of Fallbrook from from this Facebook page. I also interviewed Jake Kruger. He is a crime prevention analyst at Fallbrook Sheriff's Department, and Detective Prickett, who is the lead detective and investigator with the Fallbrook Sheriff's Department as well. So, what I learned was that social media may be exacerbating the sense that robberies and thefts are increasing, not giving accurate information, and they may be creating a false sense of hysteria and a false sense of fear in the community. Although I don't think it's anybody's intent. You can see here, Facebook, Twitter, there's a lot of social media areas where we can go and we can say just whatever we're thinking, whatever our perspective is, and people will jump on that and listen. And with that, though, there's a lot of negatives because we don't always know the whole story, and sometimes we start portraying things as they're not. So in the past 20 years before, where there were maybe crimes happening often, no one really knew about them. But now every single crime is being posted up on Facebook, and it's starting to make the community think there are more, when in fact there really may not be more. We also have newspaper articles that we read that may have a tone that's a little bit more scary than it needs to be. And people themselves, in our community, sometimes when people are bored or people need attention, exaggeration is just something that people struggle with. They tend to exaggerate situations and incite anger in people, and usually they point at the sheriff's department or the cops, or why aren't they working harder? Why aren't they helping us? This exaggeration in media creates a fear of crime and a mistrust of the law enforcement who are in charge of keeping our community safe. The results. So that was a result. Also, we have these results here. Numbers and statistics are showing that robberies are not actually increasing in Fallbrook. Burglaries are commonly associated with gangs, drug use, and homelessness. And although the rates of robberies are not going up, there's still a problem with drug use and homelessness in the community that can be seen by the rise in home burglaries. There are many resources available to our small town, but the majority of the people are not aware of them. More results. When I was speaking with the detective, he explained to me that Proposition 47 has left theft as a misdemeanor in California. He was saying that this basically means that there's very little he can do when somebody steals something from a grocery store, or steals something that's below a certain price. All he can do is write a report, and it's frustrating for him. His hands are tied. So, they have to, although people are like, the sheriffs aren't doing anything, oftentimes it's because they are following protocol that, is established by law. We also discussed how rationalistic planning and lack of funds has caused many criminals to be released back to the streets, and repeat offenders who are well known for burglaries and thefts are now back and continuing their criminal patterns. Another extremely frustrating thing for the sheriffs, they work so hard to keep us safe. However, within 24 hours, many people are released and then they're just back at it again. So, once again, the sheriffs feel like their hands are tied in this area. So, they are reaching out more to community to teach the community how to stay safe from these offenders and criminals. So, interventions. The most important intervention I found is to form a community group that organizes in order to talk about the current problems and decide what interventions best fit to help fix the problem. Decided that the best way to do this is to kind of take a participatory planning stance, social advocacy, solidarity organizing, and identity activism. You know, we have so many people in our community who are so smart. We have very talented grant writers. We have social workers. We have retired policemen. We have teachers and psychologists. And I really feel that we have so many people who, if given the proper information and if the sheriffs took the time to explain their perspective and the community listened and explained their perspective, we could really create something great here. And so that's really exciting to me because the sheriffs were very interested in hearing what the community has to say, as long as the community was willing to hear their perspective and the speed bumps they hit. um, I also have another intervention here. I don't have much time to talk about it, so we're going to move forward. So when I finished with all my findings, I told the agencies that I would have a chance to put this presentation on social media, and I will also be emailing it. So everybody will have a chance to listen to this. Also, at the interview, we discussed further possibility to work in collaboration in the future with the Fallbrook Sheriff's Department as a community liaison in order to share my findings and help create a healthier relationship between the community and the Sheriff's Department so that the community can be a resource in the future. Factors. Having people who are interested to talk about their perspective and their view of the problem is what helped to make this assessment effective. So, consequently, on the other side, running into people who were unwilling to return calls or discuss their point of view on the problem hindered the effectiveness of this needs assessment. Having very little power behind my name has caused situations where I have been ignored repeatedly. I had a really hard time getting people to agree to talk to me, which was disappointing. I learned that persistence and reaching out to multiple people is key. Okay, so what else did I learn through this process? I learned so much that I can't even put it in this presentation, which is super frustrating. But the biggest things I learned was, you know, the roles that the newspapers and social media play and how important it is for me to look for substantiated data. I learned about being persistent. I learned that I shouldn't be disappointed if I don't have a great answer to the problem the first time around or right away, that the solution really starts to develop on its own as you meet people and as you continue searching through what this problem is and what's really happening. There are many different paths and many different interventions for a problem. Sometimes one problem on the surface is made up of multiple problems below. I learned that it takes a village. Community organization is more about empowering the community than coming up with my own interventions. So, although there's so much more I'd like to share, this is it in a shortened version. And thank you so much for listening to my project.